Yo guys, and welcome back for another video. So today we're going to be talking about the Season 3 launch of Blue Protocol Star Resonance. And with that, there's going to be some new systems and some other systems that you're more familiar with. Let's go ahead and jump right into it and check everything out for Season 3. So starting off, let's go over where we're going to be getting our gear from like normal. So several of the dungeons that we know and maybe love are back in rotation, and that does include the Towering Ruin, which is where you're going to be able to get your boots and charm. We have Tina's Mind Realm, which is once again back in rotation as well, again giving us the chest piece and the ring. We have the Cursed Radiant Tomb, which does appear to be a new dungeon, which will have the gauntlet and the earrings. Then we have the mech facility for the helmet and the necklace, and we have the Mistvale hunting ground for the bracers. Then finally, the new weapon dungeon is going to be the Sea Ringed Reef. I'm gonna go ahead and throw up on the screen some information about like the ability score and the illusion score requirements for each dungeon on each difficulty. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check that out. Pause the video if you want to take a look. The key takeaway here is that you need to make sure that you always hit this illusion score requirement for any activity, because if you don't, you're likely to get one shot and it's not going to be a good time for you or your teammates. You're also going to do a lot less damage. Now, we do know a little bit more information too about the actual release cadence of the Season 3 content from the official Blue Protocol Star Resonance Twitter. Feel free to pause the video if you guys want to check it out in more depth, but the main kind of takeaway is that the pacing is going to be very similar to normal, meaning that we're only going to get like one dungeon at a time or so. And so for about the first month or so, we're going to be only doing normal and hard mode versions of these dungeons. Master mode will open up along with the ability to get our 240 reforged stones and start working on our 250 weapons on June 22nd. There's also a new feature that allows you to gear out your secondary classes as well. So if you look down here on the bottom, you'll actually see that there's a button for looting class. So you'll actually get gear depending on which one you actually pick here. Like, let's say if I want to get my tank gear while I'm playing my Stormblade, I can do that just as easily. One thing I really want to make sure that I add too is that you'll see even on the normal mode dungeon, so all of the dungeons, you'll see this material here, this Echo of Ember Residence Sigil. It's very, very, very important, but you get it through a lot of different activities, and dungeon grinding being one of them. Another big addition is the addition of the Ember Elite Store. This is going to be just a new tab in the seasonal store that you're normally used to. So this gives you the ability to buy reforged stones, modification crystals, which we'll go over in a moment, and then of course the materials that you need for crafting your gear. This also includes the ability to buy packages that give you the yellow materials you need to upgrade your imagines, as well as the factor box here to get your G10 factors later on in the season. But this new material actually comes from doing chaotic realms, diamond vaults, boss loot chests, or by participating in Starland events. And this material here seems like it will be a very, very important thing to try and min-max. I wouldn't trust these weekly limits. These weekly limits are probably related to the catch-up mechanic of the game. So when we get it, you'll probably have access to a lot less on the weekly limits here. I can't imagine they're going to let you farm 24 of these boxes per week. There's just no possible way, right? So keep that in mind too. Ultimately, you do want to be doing these things to get these materials because it is going to be a very, very useful part of your end game experience. One of the new systems that's coming allows you to re-roll parts of your gear. So we've come to our refiner guy, the same guy we do all of our stuff with, and down here is a new option for us in the gear modification section. And what you'll see is over here on the right, there's a cog wheel. And so I can actually use these materials down here to change and pick the upgrade that I want. So instead of just randomly rolling one of these or farming another weapon, it actually allows you to just pick the one that you want so you don't have to worry about it. It is very, very expensive, and you will need a lot of the material that you need to refine that piece of gear. In this case, the mystery metal, and then also those modification crystals that we just talked about that come from from that elite shop. You can see you can also purchase these from the orb store, and they're also in the mystery store as well. And then for the polar catalyst here, you'll see that this comes specifically from chaotic master mode 6 to 20. I really like this. This gives reasons to do and push that content, even if, you know, realistically, if you're pushing higher in that content, you probably do have the gear that you want, but you can always refine it a little bit, right? And master mode 6 is going to be very approachable when that is finally unlocked. And so at that point, you will be able to farm the material, hopefully, that you need to actually get this. Now, I don't know what the drop rates are looking like, but I think ultimately this is going to make gearing at endgame significantly easier and just way less annoying, right? How many times did you get the wrong purple stack? Because that was happening to me a ton. I can't tell you the number of times that I got armor on helmet, chest, and all those other options and stuff like that, you know? Something I want to be sure and mention too is, like, I've been rolling many pieces of gear at this point, and what you'll see is I always end up rolling the same high roll. So I think they did that just to simplify the process, so you don't have to worry about getting like low roll piece and then wasting materials on that. So none of these weapons that I got, none of them rolled anything but the high roll, and it does just make it a lot simpler for people to gear out and get their builds going. Another thing I want to mention too about this new gear modification system is it actually will let you pick the substat that you want instead of having to roll it. So it does cost, you know, a little bit more than just doing an additional roll, but not that much, and that way you don't have to waste too many reforged stones. But if I wanted to say I want haste, then I can just pick it here. That only becomes available after you've fully perfected the piece, so just keep that in mind. But once it is fully perfected, you do open up the possibility of just picking whatever you want. So all you really need to do is get the main 2 stats that you want on a piece of gear, and then you'll actually be able to fix the rest even if you get unlucky. Now, gear modification does actually go one step further. So when you do get your red gear, what you'll see is there's a rare attribute section down here, and I can actually go here and click on this, and it will allow me to pick whatever I want from my rare attribute. But specifically, this is going to be really good for classes where their red weapon wasn't really the best for them, and that was the case for a few weapons, at least in season 1. So this does give you more freedom to develop your build. Many people are probably just going to go and look at whatever is optimal, whatever is best from a guide somewhere online, but the point being is that there's more variability here that you can control, and I really like that and kind of the direction the game is going, because I really want to see Blue Protocol go more into build crafting and allowing people to have multiple viable options for builds and playstyles. About the same time that this video is coming out, I'm going to be releasing more videos, including information about the Fairy Tail collaboration and also other cosmetics for season 3. So be on the lookout for those. If you guys are going to be topping up, don't forget to support a creator of your choice. It could be me, it could be whoever you want from the Blue Protocol Star Resonance community. It's 100% free. All you have to do is when you go to purchase your rose orbs online, the link in the description below and on the screen, all you have to do is type in the creator's code into the bottom left hand corner. There's a box, and that's it. It's 100% free. It does help show the Blue Protocol Star Resonance team that you liked the content from that creator. Now for the raids this time around, we're going to be looking at what appears to be some interesting mech bosses. They do look a little samey, but they are slightly different colored and stuff. For the recommended illusion strength and ability score, for easy mode, we're looking at 47,650 ability score with 1970 illusion score, and that's for easy. For hard, we're looking at 56,110 ability score and 2910 illusion score. For nightmare mode, we are looking at 58,320 ability score with 3220 illusion score. Now we'll also notice that on this page we have access to some new materials. So first of all, we have access to this new Ember rune alloy, which is going to be used for making our 240 gear. And then of course you still have the ability to get your weapon material, which is going to be this illusory flux gold. This material right here is what you're going to be using to craft your new red weapons eventually. Starting with hard mode, you'll actually start getting the illusory flux gold actual drop. You don't actually seem to get them at all other than the rare box in easy. but in hard mode you will start getting the actual drops from the bosses as well. And then you're also going to start getting these illusion crystals, which if you played the previous season, you'll know that these are going to be used for breaking through on your gear and leveling up your 240 gear to 250. And finally, for the nightmare mode version, we do have this new material, which is what you're going to be using to craft your 260 gear. Of course, we'll start getting the glinter stellar cores at this point, which you're going to want to be farming for your ocean weapons. Our new material for breaking through our 260 gear up to 270. And again, just like last season, at this point, they will upgrade by 5 per level. Last but not least, we have access to our red sigils. So just like last time, these will drop from the bosses, and then they will have a random stat on them, so like strength, agility, or intellect, depending on how lucky you get. So let's go ahead and take a look at the honor coin shop and see what some of our new materials are going to be looking like. So just like the last season and kind of the season before that, we have our alloy shards here. This blue alloy shard is going to be our 220, this is going to be our 240, and then this is going to be our 260 gear. This is going to be our 220 reforged stones, our 240 reforged stones, and then our 260 reforged stones. And then of course we'll be able to buy the material that you need for making your armor sets here as well, and then even your breakthrough material. There is a new shard, so this is the Echo of Ember sigil shards. We're going to be using those to get our new sigils. The sigil vendor is the same place as it was before. You can also recycle your sigils here if you need to. As a reminder, for anyone who wasn't playing in season 2, these sigils are actually just the replacement of gems, and so they do depend on what gear you can put them in. Instead of just being able to put them in any slot, that sigil will tell you what it can be placed on. So this one, for example, works on only weapon, earring, necklace, and ring. This one, for example, works on helmet, armor, gauntlets, and boots, and you get the idea. And this is kind of what the menu looks like now with these particular options. We do have the effect to just get flat attack, which is kind of an interesting change. We have a magic attack as well. I feel like these will actually be pretty high value for your weapons, earrings, necklaces, and rings. For our yellow sigils, this is what we have access to. So 66 all element attack, a crazy amount of crit and verse, a high amount of haste inverse, a high amount of luck inverse, and a high amount of mastery inverse. So it looks like versatility is going to be more common than it was before. These do feel like a very, very large amount of stats, which is very cool. Not that 600 was bad in season 2, but obviously, more is always better. So for our purple ones, this is what you're going to have access to. Endurance is kind of an interesting one. I wonder if tanks are going to be taking endurance for their weapon instead of just all out attack. We have crit verse, and it looks like maybe that verse trend is going to continue. Yeah, so everything is one stat plus verse, and then you do have the opportunity, like I said, to just do attack, which is interesting, and magic attack. And then all of the other ones here had endurance, and then these are just single stat substats, which are 620. So even these blues are going to be better than the yellows were before, which is nice to see. You do still have the ability to guarantee a golden box if you purchase 10 of the random sigils chests, so keep that in mind as you're farming your sigils and if you're trying to get some of these early on. Now for the new humanoid imagines, we do have another new banner which does give us access to Denville, Egorius, Plague Napo, and Cartgriff. Denville seems to be a damage dealing imagine that basically just drains your own health and then gives you more damage with an additional boost for every 100,000 max HP that you have. Now Agoria seems like it's going to be a crit and crit damage imagine. When you use it, it's going to give you crit, and then any base crit that you have exceeding 60% is going to be converted into crit damage at a set ratio depending on your imagine. And then the passive actually just does give you crit damage, and landing crits has a chance to increase crit damage by additional percentage up to 5 stacks. So that seems like it will be really good for any of those crit classes, probably the people that are running like Muku Chief, for example. The Plague Napo is actually a bit more complex, and basically what's going to happen is it does different things based on what you did previously. So if you just did a special attack, it's going to summon a Stormblade Napo that deals AoE damage and reduces the current resonance skills cooldown by 81%. So just things like that, but for each thing. If you use an expertise skill, it's going to summon a Marksman Napo that deals attack damage and reduces the current resonance skills cooldown by 68%. If you used an ultimate, it's going to summon a Wind Knight Napo, dealing damage and reducing current skills cooldown by 25% and temporarily increasing your damage. If you cast after another resonance skill, summons Beat Performer Napo to reduce the cooldown of the previous cast resonance skill, excluding this one. I honestly don't know what class would really take advantage of that, but it sounds pretty interesting in that it's basically just like a cooldown imagine, which is kind of strange. I feel like the cooldowns really aren't too long in this game, but maybe there are certain classes that it really works well for. Now, Cart Griff seems like it's going to be a support imagine. So it's going to give you main stats and healing boost, but not just to you, but you and up to 10 nearby allies, prioritizing your teammates, of course. And at base level, it looks like it's going to be 10% increased healing and 7.5% increased main attribute enhancement. I think that's actually a really interesting imagine, and you might want your supports to have this, but supports have so many other imagines too that are so powerful in this day and age. I'm not sure where this is going to fit in terms of like what people would ultimately want or prioritize. I mean, in a perfect world, you would have all of them, but there's only so many spots, you know? And you have to convince your support to not go a DPS build. Looking at you. Healers who say that you're damage dealers. Now, we also have a bunch of other imagines too that are just regular imagines that you can farm through bosses. That includes the Predator Spider. This one sounds really interesting for haste damage dealers who want mastery. After casting, your passive attack bonus is temporarily enhanced according to your mastery percentage. Every 5% mastery grants extra attack for each passive stack. And then the passive effect is expertise skill damage is increased by 1.2% of attack and grants 1 additional stack for every 10% haste. Honestly, it sounds like you could get a decent amount of value out of this for maybe even Moonblades, but again, our current ones are so good that something like this, I'm not sure how it will fit in. Oh, I actually really like this one. This one's called Rebel King. Now, this one is actually similar to a monk passive that has existed in World of Warcraft for a really long time. And the idea is that you just can't use the same ability twice in a row. So casting a class skill different than your previous one, excluding basic attacks, grants 1.6% elemental bonus, stacking up to 5 times. Casting the same skill resets the stacks at max stacks. Stacks can no longer be gained or lost for 10 seconds and are cleared when the duration ends. So basically, you're just going to be getting a bunch of extra passive damage for alternating your skills. Oh, I'm so excited about this too. So Void Watcher seems like it's going to be a supportive one, specifically for characters that want to do healing. So it does damage and then occupies an area for a period of time. You and your teammates within the area gain increased attack speed, casting speed, and the effect on yourself is multiplied by 2.5. It also has the passive effect of casting a healing skill deals magic damage equal to 80% of attack to nearby enemies. Each time a healing skill is cast, this damage effect is increased by 20%, stacking up to 10 times for 5 seconds. I'm just saying, if any Lifebinder whales out there want to be topping the meters, I mean, maybe this is you. Maybe this is your moment. This is phenomenal. I love the fact that they are looking at making healers give more value in terms of damage, but also making them actually press their healing button. I'm hopeful that this is part of a larger plan to make supports have to do more healing. We'll have to wait and see. I feel like the game is very, very strange, where at times it feels like healing is not really necessary. Other times, you know, during raid progs and stuff like that, the healing classes really are really important, but there's, you know, not as many of them running around. So hopefully that will also add a little bit of spice and variety to the support healers and make it more exciting for them as well. Oh, I really like this one too. This one's like kind of a final stand for tanks, it looks like. So when you use it, you'll get armor and max HP increase. And then when HP is above 90%, grants invigorated, super armor, and immunity to status effects. Very cool. And then upon taking lethal damage, grants survival instinct. HP will not fall below 1% for 1 second and restores 4% HP per second. Triggers at most once every 90 seconds. This is like a cheat death basically for every 90 seconds. That sounds phenomenal. Honestly, the game kind of needed something like this. There were times when you were pushing hierarchies, especially, where there would just be an incredible burst of damage and it became harder, especially for some classes, to kind of deal with it. Like, I don't know if you remember, but in season 1, the tank of choice, if you're trying to do 19s or 20s, was to use the heavy guardian because the paladins just straight up couldn't survive. Then we have the bloodthirsty furball, which is going to be good for those players stacking luck. So for a period of time after casting, every time your class skills and luck effects deal damage, they add extra damage on top of the skill's base value equal to a certain percentage of your attack. And then your passive effect, for every 10 instances of damage dealt by class skills, each attack counts only once. The next damage instance additionally deals AoE adaptive attack and magic damage equal to your attack. Could be pretty interesting, but depending on how this passive ends up playing out, I'm not really sure if it would be super good for most classes. If, like, for example, the whirling scythe or whatever that the Moonblade has, if that whole duration only counts as one instance of damage, you know, probably not going to be the best. Just like season 2, we're still going to be having access to our Deep-Slumber Psychoscope levels, and so of course that will come with the different extra functionality that you got from it, just like last season. For the seasonal stuff, you're going to be using a new material called Echo Residuum. So this is going to look very similar to kind of how it looked last season, with us using the materials to purchase what we needed from the ecto factors here and then putting them into our grids over here. Just like before, it doesn't really look like a whole lot has changed here, so this should look pretty familiar to you. This is going to be the new dungeon set that is available for farming through the dungeons. So it's really not my favorite personally, but you know, to each their own. Now, in terms of the dungeon weapons, we do have these. They're kind of like a strange, I'm honestly not sure what I would refer to this as, but it's called the Radiant Ceremonial Blade. So that's what it looks like for the Storm Blade. For the Frost Mage, for the new Twin Axe class, I will be putting out another video to show off the season 3 cosmetics. Be on the lookout for that, and in that video I would also be putting in the skin specifically for the Twin Axe class: the Wind Knight, the Verdant Oracle, the Heavy Guardian, the Marksman, the Shield Knight, and the Beat Performer. And to be honest, I think this is the only one that kind of looks good. The rest of them I'm not exactly loving, but hey, if they're up your alley, you know, no worries, enjoy. Now, we do have access to bond stories as well. So these are going to be what I think is more like, you know, companion stories and stuff that we'll be able to go through with some of the characters. And it looks like Fafala and Boyce are going to be two of the main characters that are going to be available. They will come with a title once you have 100% completed it. In this case, White Maiden and the Tree. And then for Boyce, you'll get the title of Return of the Morning Star. When you go to your quest log, it'll just be in the bottom right hand corner. It's just bond stories, and this is where you can find them. As you can see, Daria here, I need to do some quests to actually unlock first, but she will also be available, it seems like, at some point in season 3. Another new thing with season 3 is the ability to be a musician in game, and you can actually play songs, I think, for other people to listen to. But it is a pretty cool idea, and I do like the fact that when you run around, you could probably hear people actually playing music nearby. You do also get the ability to pick between the guitarist, the keyboard, the bassist, and the drummer. So any of these that you actually want to learn how to play, you'll be able to play them in the actual game, which is pretty cool. And they do have some music that you can play along with as well. All right, guys, well, I think that's kind of it for the season 3 content. There's going to be some more videos coming out likely soon based on like cosmetics and a few other things that don't really count as like gear progression and new content. So we'll cover that in those other videos. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Like the video down below if you guys like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this. Comment down below if there's anything else you want to see, maybe something I missed. And best of luck to you guys in season 3, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one.